I have played a lot of Planet Coaster 2 in the last week, over 50 hours, and I can tell you that it is a refined experience and definitely one of the best park management games out there, and definitely an improvement over Planet Coaster 1. But the more you're playing the game, the more you're realizing it is plagued by interface and control issues, at least on the PC. And with that, let's have another episode of More Thoughts and my review to Planet Coaster 2. Planet Coaster 2 came out for me a little bit out of nowhere when it first was announced, but I was super hyped for it, especially now that we have also the amazing water parks, which we will get into here in just a few minutes. But when first the announcement came out, people were like, wait, is this just a glorified DLC? Is this just a patch they are kind of trying to sell to us for extra money? Thankfully, the answer is no, that isn't the case at all. This is Planet Coaster 2 because they took all the experience from the other park management games like Jurassic World and, of course, Planet Zoo and condensed it all into their new game, which is Planet Coaster 2. And no, they didn't just reuse the assets from the first one, they actually created completely new ones. And you don't have, like, what was it, Western pirates, sci-fi and all that. Like, you have new things like Vikings, Greek mythology, and some other theme packs they are now adding to the game, which are focusing on certain aspects. And they all feel fresh, they all feel new, and they all feel pretty interesting. And I really love to play with them and create the park of my dreams. And one of the biggest additions to this game is now the possibility to just, well, nearly change everything in the game. You know how you were limited in the first one when it came to rides, and you wanted to kind of make it so that the ride is fitting into your specific theme park you were crafting, but you couldn't. Just to give you an example, in the first one, I love to do like a Halloween spooky theme park, but they were just rides which wouldn't fit into that because they were like Western rides or sci fi rides, and you could really just create the scenery around those rides, but the rides themselves were off limit. Well, good news, and Planet Coaster 2, that's not the case anymore. You can nearly change everything on the ride and make it your own. And the game is not really complaining that you put like a tree in the middle of the ride where they would normally would crash with the tree or anything. The game is just ignoring that. And yes, that's silly, nobody is doing it, but it just shows you how much freedom you actually have. And it really allows you to finally build the park of your dreams without having to think the whole time, oh, does this right really fit into my park? It doesn't matter because you can now change it. The same goes with the new water park. The new water park is awesome. I love water parks. I love water in general. And for me, this is, of course, something really big. And I was just happy to see that they are now offering you this experience of creating those water experiences. And the really interesting part here is that basically the water areas you're creating, they work a little bit like paths. They're using the same mechanics, they're using the same tool sets, and I wouldn't be too surprised when they were actually programmed as paths in the game and then they just changed the graphics around and whatnot. But you can literally use them as paths. That means you could basically divide your theme park with a huge water ride in the middle, and people have to go through the lazy river to go to the other side of the park. Or if you want to make it a little bit smaller, you could cut off a specific ride from the rest of your theme park, and people have to go through a flume first before they can even reach the ride, which is just cool, right? Like the abilities and the possibilities you have to make some really interesting theme parks now with the water rides is just massive, and it feels great. I love to create those little water sections, and I also love to create the flumes. Yes, yes, the flumes are not necessarily following how physics work, right? And they are also not very safe. There are a lot of moments where people are so close to the edge of like a pool and they would probably break their legs at some point in real life. It doesn't matter in this game. Like, Planet Coaster 2 definitely followed through with the approach of going a little bit more silly instead of trying to strike too much realism into the game. And I personally am more than okay with that. But they also added tons of new rides you can now utilize in the game, or as per usual, you can build your own coasters. And there are also more flat rides in the game available to you. And as I said, in combination with the water parks and the themes you can choose, it feels a lot like build your own theme park and then go completely into the Sims mode where you are losing yourself into the nitty gritty, what you want to build around those items. Something they have already done really, really well in Planet Coaster 2, but now they have just doubled this experience. And again, it feels fantastic. Now, with that all said, unfortunately, there are issues. And some of those issues are just a head scratcher to me because I don't really know who tested those things and said, yeah, yeah, no, this is fine. Like, first of all, I talked about how you can nearly change out everything with the scenery, right? And you probably have already realized that I said nearly because there are limitations and I do not understand why those limitations exist. Like when you're putting down a scenery which looks like a door, you cannot take that scenery apart. That means you cannot take apart the door frame, you cannot take apart the doors, the wings yourself and put them something else, somewhere else. And it really limits you what you could still do with the scenery. And I'm wondering why is that limitation there when they are clearly giving you so much freedom? But that's more like a choice question and not really something I would complain too much about. But what I can complain about is the interface and the controls. It just feels sloppy on mouse and keyboard. It feels bad. Sometimes certain functions they're offering you do not, well, function. Let me give you just one simple example here. When you want to change the axis on an item, if you are somebody who has played Planet Coaster before and you know your way around the controls, you know that you can just hit X on your keyboard and then you can change the axis. Now, for a lot of people who don't know that, they see the button on the top right of the interface, which you, by the way, see in the background, and you can just click the button there, and then you can change the axis. But, and this is where it becomes bizarre, is you can see it here, the item is bound to my mouse cursor. So when I'm moving over to the button and click it, the item will freeze as the last position where your mouse cursor was when you click the button, which is, well, in this case, where the button is. So my item is now in the middle of a building. And I'm like, how did nobody notice that? How did nobody test this? Yes, again, you hit the X on your keyboard, it's much simpler, but it is a function they're offering you. So why does this not work? Why has nobody looked over this and said, okay, this is silly. This is not how it should work. The same goes when you build paths. The new path mechanics are amazing. They're great. They are such a huge improvement over the first one. But then you slowly realize that something is off. Something doesn't work as it should because you can deactivate all the options, which make it so that the path should work with a grid. And there is still a grid working in the background, like a secret grid you cannot see. You know it's there, but you cannot see it, and the path is still following that grid. And it makes it so hard to like fill out small corners or take sharp turns so that you are sometimes sitting here, working on a path for 5 minutes, which should take you the most a minute to finish, right? And that happens so often with so many small things where you are wrestling more with the controls and the interface than you are actually focusing on building your dream park. And it is so, so infuriating. Like some corners of my park look absolutely shit because there is some hidden grid I had to follow and I cannot fill out certain areas easily. I have to go into the edit tool and then have to do it from there and hope it works. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you're giving me all those tools. You even give me stamps. Why didn't you just give me a brush? Just give me a brush. I can free paint when it comes to the paths and to the water stuff. Like, why is that not in? Or when what sometimes happens when you are building, like, let's say, a lazy river, and you stop in certain corners, and then you are starting a new lazy river, and that lazy river for whatever reason is like 50 centimeters higher than the previous one, and you say, okay, merge those two lazy rivers so they are counted as one, the game is like, nah, can't do. But why? Nah, can't do. Okay. Or when I'm building a flume, I had a problem at the beginning with building a flume that the flume was telling me, yeah, you cannot do that. Wait, I first of all, what do you mean I cannot do that? Yeah, you cannot do that. What can I not do? What's my problem? Explain. Hmm? You have to figure it out. There's no explanation for you. And it is just infuriating. And then I found out that, well, the flume has to be apparently at least like a meter or two over the water surface so that you can finish the flume. And apparently for the other one, I was like 70 centimeters instead of a meter over the water surface, and the flume didn't like that. But instead of telling me too long, too close to water or anything, it just literally said, can't do. And why? Like, to make this clear, after playing this game for 50 hours, yes, Planet Coaster 2 is a massive improvement. I love it. And if the tool sets and the interface would work fine, this would be one of the best management games Frontier has ever made, and one of the best management and park building games ever out there. That's how good this game it is. But every time you immerse yourself and you're finally into this mindset of you want to build something, you have to sometimes wrestle with the mechanics and with the controls too much. And I hope they're fixing this as fast as possible. Now, do I recommend this game? Well, yeah. Yeah, I do. If you are not somebody who is going completely crazy over the things I just mentioned and is not getting angry about it, then yes, I can recommend that to you. If you are somebody who wants to scream at their monitor when you are trying to redo a fourth time the path in front of you, which should be super easy to do, then no, you might want to wait a little bit longer on the game. And as I said, I'm pretty sure they can fix it up. There are two more things I want to mention here very quickly. First, hotels are not in the game yet. Uh, don't mind that too much because let's be real here, the hotels in the first one were kind of meh anyways. And if they bring them back, I really want them to put the work into the hotels and give us a lot of options. And there's also, and this is a bigger problem, in my opinion, there is a 20 euro slash dollar DLC coming with the game, which gives you another 10 flat rides you would normally not have. And that basically then changes the price tag from $50 to $70, right? I kind of understand why they wanted to do that, but it's also like, oh, come on, man, a release DLC, really? Uh, that's not great. One last thing before we are wrapping this up, also very important. I got this game for free by Frontier, and I do appreciate that. But again, that doesn't really change how I feel about the game because I plan to buy it anyways, and they were just nice enough to give me a key on the release. So that's the only difference here. But I wanted to mention that anyways. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you still have some questions, let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. And also, if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. We are focusing here not just on Planet Coaster 2, but strategy games in general. So if you like that, you came to the right place. With that said, have a good one. Stay safe. Bye-bye.